Dear all, I welcome you all to the second session of the day one. It is my privilege to introduce Dr. G.V. Naveen Prakash sir, Professor and Head, Department of Mechanical Engineering, Vidyavartaka College of Engineering, Mysore. Sir has a total professional experience of 29 years, of which 17 years in teaching, 2 years in the industry, and 10 years in research. Sir has published 46 reputed journals, 34 international and 13 national conferences. Sir is a member of scientific and professional bodies such as Indian Society of Technical Education, the Institution of Engineers, Society of Manufacturing Engineers. Sir also secured Best Engineering Teacher Award from Negila Yogi Samaj Seva Trust, Mysore. With this, I request Dr. G.V. Naveen Prakash sir to share his knowledge on condition monitoring of machine tools.
Yeah, thank you, Rohit. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the nice introduction.
Please. Oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah, first I will share my screen.
Sure.
Yeah, is it visible?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, welcome all the participants for this FDP on diagnostic maintenance of mechanical systems. Okay, but in particular, my topic is condition monitoring of machine tools. Okay, moving on. Coming to the presentation flow, first I will touch upon the introduction of condition monitoring of machine tools. Then we will discuss regarding some of the machine tools, how to identify what are the components to be identified. Then we'll go for the different monitoring techniques. We'll touch this in a very brief manner. Then we'll go for the monitoring components and approaches that we have. And then finally, we'll go for the conclusions. Now, coming to the introduction. Okay, major concern in manufacturing is the quality of product. Okay, this is the well-known statement, because for any manufacturing, what we think is we need to go for the quality of product. When you say the manufacturing, again, it is a conversion of raw material into product. Again, then there's the basic definition that we have. When you say the quality of product, actually the quality, when you say the quality, it should be a measurable one. Therefore, how to measure the quality? To measure the quality, we have two parameters. Okay, the parameters which we concern in manufacturing is, that is a dimensional accuracy and surface finish. Okay, we think of, or we give importance for the dimensional accuracy, that also take care of the shape, and finally the surface finish. If these two are correct, then we say the quality of the product is good. Now, when you say the manufacturing, okay, we know that there are different types of manufacturing processes. Okay, that is, it can be the casting process, or it can be the forming process, or it can be the machining process, or it can be the joining process. Okay, we have different types of manufacturing activity. Okay, what we are concerned here is, we are concerned with the machine tools. Okay, machine tools that is involved in the machining process, where we are going to remove the extra material to get the required shape. Okay, again, machine tools, as you all know, it can be a lathe, it can be a drilling machine tool, it can be a milling machine tool, or it can be a grinding machine tool, and so on. Now, when I say this manufacturing, we're using machine tools, we need to expect the good dimensional accuracy and a good surface finish. Okay, therefore, what we need to do to get that, apart from all other parameters, we need to concentrate on condition monitoring. Okay, why? Because this is a technique for improving the productivity, efficiency, and reliability of machine components. If the productivity and efficiency and reliability are more, then also we can increase the number of production, and also we get the quality product. Okay, for that purpose, we need to aim at condition monitoring. Now, techniques for condition monitoring and fault diagnosis of machine tools. I think you all know about the various techniques of condition monitoring and fault diagnosis. We have the direct technique, we have the indirect techniques, we have online technique, we have offline technique. Therefore, we have many techniques. We know many techniques which can be used for the condition monitoring or to diagnose the fault in the machine tool. Then comes the question is, okay, whether all are feasible, whether which one to be used. Okay, if you consider each as a technique, each have their own drawbacks, their limitations. Okay, they are not all are not absolute. Okay, for that, what we need to do? Okay, since we have all these techniques have one or other drawbacks, what we need to do is we need to have more information. Okay, to have more information, we need to go for a multisensory approach. That is, we need to get the information from the multi-techniques or multisensory approach. Okay, therefore, why it is required? Because we need to know how the real faults develop. Okay, how these faults develop, how they exhibit themselves with the measured parameters. For that purpose, we need to have the more information, and as well as we need not only know the current status. What we need to do is we need to add on. What we need to add on, we need to be able to predict what is the future operating states and what is the predictive diagnosis of the future failure states. We need to identify how we need to predict how the future operating states will be, and we need to be able to identify how the future failure states will be. Okay, therefore, condition monitoring now, it is not restricted for monitoring the present status. From that, we should also be able to identify what is the future operating state, and we should be able to identify what is the type of failure that can happen. Okay, but these last 4 sentences, I think these are important even after the completion of this FDP also. Therefore, you find these sentences in the introduction as well, and also you will find these sentences at the end of this FDP, at this end of this lecture also. Okay, now coming to the second aspect, the machine tools. Okay, in the machine tools, okay, what we have is we need to analyze the machine tools. As I already said, machine tools, it can be a lathe, or it can be a milling machine, or it can be a grinding machine tool. We need to go for analysis of machine tools. Why? Because machine tools have many components. Now comes the question is, which components has to be monitored? Okay, which are all the components that can be monitored? What are all the methods that we have to monitor those components? Okay, looking onto that particular feature, that is, let us consider, we'll go for a lathe. If we consider a lathe as a lathe, we will find many subsystems. The many subsystems are, that is, headstock is a subsystem, tailstock, carriage, feed mechanism, electrical system, hydraulic system, and the coolant systems. These are all comprises of these, put together all these subsystems, we got a lathe. Again, in that particular headstock, we have a gearbox, we have bearings, belt drive, motor, check. Similarly, for the carriage, we have saddle, cross slide, tool post. Likewise, for each subsystem, we have different components. When we have these different components, now comes the question is where to concentrate, how to monitor, which component to be monitored. Okay, therefore, for further analysis, we need to do. What is that further analysis that we need to do? We need to go for identifying what is the failure frequency and downtime of each component or each subsystem. If you observe this graph, that is the lathe subsystem versus percentage of failure, you can see that there are 2 aspects. One is breakdown hour and the number of failures. If we consider the headstock, though the number of failures is less, the breakdown hour is more. That is, the time taken to repair the headstock is more. Similarly, we have for the tailstock, a carriage mechanism, electrical system. Electrical system is the number of failures is more, though it's a more, the time taken to repair that is very short or very less. Likewise, for hydraulic system, we have the coolant subsystem. Therefore, considering these things, what we'll come to know is, okay, which is the one, the component which is hindering us, okay, or which is the bottleneck for us. Okay, that in this case, what we can clearly say it is the headstock. When we say the headstock, again, what are the components of the headstock? We have the gearbox, we have the bearings, we have the other components as well. Therefore, if you go back to the lecture, the previous slide, you can see that we have the gearbox, bearings, we have the belt drive, motor, as well as the chuck. Okay, normally what we do when we consider the headstock, what we concentrate is we concentrate for the gearbox, and as we concentrate on the bearings. Why bearings? Because all the load is transmitted to the bearings in the headstock. Now, we know the lathe subsystem now. We know which are the subsystems that are failed and how many hours are required that we have come across. Now we need to know what is the type of failure. Okay, what is the type of failure that we see it in the next slide. Okay, in the next slide, you can see that what is the failure mode. Okay, the failure mode, it can be a component damage, it can be a fuse burning out, it can be a circuit fault, or it can be the looseness. Okay, the circuit fault, fuse burnt, or the looseness, it can easily be done. Whereas for the component damage, it can be the damage for the gear, or it can be the damage for the bearings. Okay, these are all the, again, it is a significant factor. The percentage of failure of the component damage is more in the case of lathe failure mode. Okay, similarly, let us try to understand the other machine tools also. Now we'll go for the milling machine. Okay, if you go for the milling machine subsystem, we find the similar subsystems, like we have a spindle, we have a table, saddle, knee assembly, electrical system, hydraulic system, the coolant system. Again, in each subsystem, we have various components like gearbox, bearings, belt drive, motor, chuck. Then we have the feed motor and the feed rod. Okay, now in the case of milling machine, let us try to understand what is the type of percentage of failure of each component. of each subsystem. In the case of milling machine, the subsystem failure frequency is, for the spindle it is less, whereas for the table it is more, and for the electrical system it is more. And as usual, the breakdown hour is less for electrical system. Likewise, for we have the number of failures for saddle, knee, hydraulic system, and the coolant system. Okay, one thing that we can observe here is, in the case of milling system, the number of breakdown hour is more for the table, and the number of failures next to the electrical system, we have the table one. Okay, now the table consisting of the feed motor, the feed rod. Okay, now where we need to concentrate on the condition monitoring. Similarly, now we will go for the components, the failure mode. Failure mode, again here, the percentage of value is more for the components. And compared to the fuse or the circuit or the looseness, the component damage is more in the case of milling machine also. Similarly, we'll go for a quick look at the grinding machine. Again, the grinding machine, we have wheel head, work head, table, tailstock, dressing unit, electrical system, hydraulic system, and a coolant system. Again, we have the various components. And when we see the failure mode, again in the wheel head, the number of hours is more, whereas in the hydraulic system, the number of breakdown hour is more compared to the number of failures. Likewise, we have various aspects, various subsystem failure frequency has been identified. And here also, when you analyze the critical component, here wheel head is a critical component, and that again the wheel head, we have the spindle, gearbox, bearings, other things. Therefore, the main thing is, again, we need to concentrate on the gearbox or the gears, and as well as the bearings. Now, with these, what we come to know is the failure between the machine tool components occur. Okay, machine tool component, because in all the cases it was the component failure was more, and what we have understood is failures in the machine tool components. Now we need to understand why there will be failure in the machine tool components. What are the reasons or what are the causes for that? Okay, there are three causes for that. One of the causes may be inherent weakness. In the manufacturing itself, there may be some weakness or some defect in the component that is subjected to the application or operation that has led to the failure of the particular component. Okay, the second aspect is the misuse of the component. Though the component may be perfect, it has not got any defect. Whereas while using the component, we have misused that. We are not used in a way which it has to be used. Therefore, the failure of the component might have occurred. And the third aspect is the gradual deterioration. With respect to the usage, with respect to the age, it has been gradually deteriorated. Therefore, now we know the machine tool components, it is a major percentage of failure. Components failure is the one, and we know the three reasons for this. But we know we need to monitor the machine tool. When we want to monitor the machine tool, which cause can be monitored easily? Inherent weakness will not come to know, therefore we cannot easily monitor that. Misuse, again, it depends on the human or the labor who are going to use that, therefore it can be monitored. Whereas the gradual deterioration is the one which can be easily monitored. Therefore, only failures of gradual deterioration. Okay, these failures are more suitable for condition monitoring purpose. Therefore, when we monitor a component, we can say that only for the gradual deterioration, we will be able to identify the current state and we'll be able to predict the future state as well. And condition monitoring will provide information about the machine tool, and not only its present condition, and also it's going to provide how it is going to fail or how it is going to deteriorate. Okay. Pardon. Okay. Now, to identify that or to say that what is the condition of the machine tool or what is the condition of the machine components and how it is going to deteriorate or what is the rate of deterioration, we need to select the suitable parameters. Okay, by measuring those parameters, we should be able to identify the condition of the machine. Okay, not only measuring the parameters, we need to record at a suitable intervals. It can be sometimes it can be continuous or sometimes it can be at the various regular intervals. We will measure that, we will analyze that, then we will be able to identify the condition of the machine tool. Whereas when we select the parameters, arbitrarily we cannot select the parameters. Okay, those parameters should be capable of indicating the condition of that particular component. Now, what are the various condition monitoring techniques? Okay, I think in the first session you had this session. It is just a repetition. I will not go in detail, but I will just mention those things. Condition monitoring techniques. It can be oil analysis, that with respect to the tribology. It can be vibration analysis, or it can be motor circuit analysis. It can be thermography, the temperature measurement. It can be ultrasonic monitoring. It can be radiography monitoring. It can be laser interferometry. It can be electrical monitoring. It can be electromagnetic measurement. Likewise, we have various techniques to monitor the condition of the component. Now comes the question is whether all these techniques will apply for all the components or whether they are restricted to some. Okay, in the next table, we shall see that how these are restricted. can see that for rolling bearings, especially for the bearings, most of the techniques are applying. Whereas for the unbalance, again, there's no technique has been used here. Out of the listed techniques. Okay, this is out of the listed techniques. No technique has been able to identify the unbalance here. Whereas for the oil well, we have two techniques. That is where we can go for the frequency analysis or we can go for the overall analysis. Okay, what I'm trying to say with this table is, though we have many techniques, those techniques will not be able to monitor, will not be capable to monitor all the parameters of that particular component. Therefore, for that purpose, what we are trying to say is, by utilizing only one technique, it will not be able to comprehensively say the condition of that component. Therefore, we need to combine two or more techniques so that we will be able to say what is the condition in a better manner or in the correct manner. Now, which are all the components to be monitored? Okay, critical components in rotating machines. As we analyze the various subsystems of the various machine tools, the critical components on the rotating machines are normally it is the bearing as well as the gear. Okay, though we have understood there is electrical breakdown and other things, there for that we cannot easily go for the condition monitoring. Whereas only for the components that we can concentrate for condition monitoring, and that too in the components only for the progressive failure we can go for we can concentrate for the condition monitoring. Okay, in that normally we be concentrating mostly on the bearing and as well as for the gear for the monitoring purpose. Okay, now the monitoring approaches. Okay, now what I'm trying to discuss here is, in the case of monitoring approaches, what are all the methods that we have to monitor these critical components? These critical components are the bearing as well as the gear. Okay, this is going to indicate, or this is going to widen the scope of the research. Okay, we can consider all the approaches, or we can select only one approach and we can try to go for that. Okay, normally to going for multisensory, it's a better option. Okay, one is the monitoring approaches. We can go for measuring the vibration signals from the bearing housing. Thereby, we'll come to know what is the vibration that is happening, and we need to identify what is the source of that particular vibration. Okay, though vibration is measured at the location of the bearing, we need to identify whether it is contributing from any other rotating component. Okay, therefore, we need to do frequency analysis. We need to go for Fourier transformation. We need to be able to segregate or be able to identify the signals from which we are getting, and we'll be able to say that why the vibration will be more, or why we are getting that particular vibration. The second approach is, we can use the temperature. By measuring the temperature, we will come to know what is that happening, why there is more amount of heat generation, what may be happening. Therefore, by measuring the temperature also, we can go for monitoring the condition. The third approach is by measuring the acoustic emission signals. And the fourth approach, we can use apart from these are the direct measurement of the signals, that is vibration, temperature, acoustic emission. These are all the direct measurement. Whereas for the FEM, that is finite element method, when you consider the first three, that is, it is the experimental case. Whereas for finite element method, it's a theoretical case. By getting the pardon?
No, sir. Continue.
Okay. Yeah. By the first three cases are from the experimentation part. If we do the experimentation, then we'll get those three signals. Whereas the fourth one, FEM, is a theoretical part. Theoretical part, why we need to go for theoretical part? Because to simulate the various conditions, it may be, experimentally, it will be too difficult. It will be too difficult, and also it may be too much expensive. Okay, in order to avoid that, that is, the one is the difficultness in creating the particular defect in either bearing or in the gear, or else to invest huge amount of money. If it is difficult, then we can go for finite element method, where you can simulate theoretically, and we can find out what is the effect of that particular defects either on the bearing or on the gear with respect to the vibration and even the temperature. Okay, that we can go for FEM approach. And finally, what is required is, it is the prediction that is required. Therefore, I will be discussing mainly with these 5 approaches. Okay, that is, we can monitor the condition of the machine tool by using the vibration signals, by using the temperature, by using acoustic emission, or by knowing these aspects as well, and by utilizing the finite element method, we can identify and we can predict. We can state the we'll be able to obtain the present condition of the particular machine component. And by using the predictions technique, there is a prediction in the sense we need to use the prediction techniques, and we will be able to identify what is the future state of the particular component and how the future failure will be. Okay, therefore, these are the 5 approaches where we can think of doing our research. Now we'll go for the first approach, that is vibration signals. In case of vibration signals, the question comes to mind is how to measure the vibration signals. Okay, again, where there are many equipments, many measuring instruments that we have to measure vibration signals. One I will be depicting here. The one is we can go for using the machine condition tester T30, where we get the vibration in terms of velocity. That is, we get the vibration velocity. And for the temperature, to measure the temperature, again, we have many sensors. One that we can use is we can go for an EAT-SPI, which is an infrared thermometer. By using this EAT-SPI, that's a digital infrared thermometer, which is directly the reading either in the Fahrenheit or in the Celsius, depending upon requirement. We'll come to know what is the temperature at that particular location. Okay, by using these two instruments, I will show the next sketch where you can see that in the drilling machine tool, these things has been used. That is, you can see that we have the EAT-SPI being used, the machine condition tester is being used. Along with that, you can also see that at the below the workpiece, we have the torque measuring instrument. Okay, that is, we have the drill tool dynamometer that we have. We're going to measure the thrust as well as the torque as well. That is, here what I want to say here is, that is, to monitor a drilling machine tool in this particular case, again they are using the multisensory approach. Now, the close-up view of the vibration sensor, you can see that the vibration sensor has been placed over here. We'll go for the previous sketch. Okay, in the previous sketch, again, while monitoring, we have the three directions. Okay, one we can call it as an horizontal and a vertical direction, as well as the axial directions. Okay, one, you can see that along the column, you can consider as a X direction, and perpendicular to that, we can consider the Y direction. Okay, in this sketch, you can see that it is along the column, the overhanging of the column, it can be considered as X direction, and perpendicular to that at 90 degrees, we can consider as an Y direction. Okay, getting the signals from both X and Y directions is much important, because we will not be knowing where the defect may be. Therefore, if we get the signals from both X and Y directions, it will give a comprehensive information about the particular condition. Now, what we need to do with these signals? Okay, we have used a machine condition tester. We have used EAT-SPI. Then how to use that particular data? Okay, how to use that particular data? The most famous thing or the more common thing is, that is, we will go to plot the data. How to plot? That is for a spindle speed as well as vibration has been plotted. And in that particular machine tool, it has 4 spindle bearings. Therefore, the reading along all the 4 spindle bearings has been considered, and the plot has been done. Okay, now, if we consider this, you can see that it's the spindle speed vibration in X direction. You can see that as the spindle speed increases, vibration also increases, obviously. But in case of these 4 bearings, the 4 bearings have different vibration data. That indicates that one bearing is vibrating at a much higher rate. Okay, again, we need to find out the reason for that. What may be the reason for that? Whether the bearing has been or not, whether there is any overhanging structure that has been there. Okay, by analyzing these things, we need to analyze this graph, and we should be able to come to a correct conclusion or an appropriate conclusion. Why the bearing 4 is less? Why bearing 1 will be vibrating at a more value? Now, coming to the next case, that is figure 14, it is a vibration for different spindle speed in Y direction. Okay, if we consider for the same 4 bearings in X and Y direction, we can observe that there is a difference in values. Okay, here for the bearing 4, it starts from 0.4 and reaches up to 0.8, whereas in Y direction, it's starting from 0.6 and reaches up to 1.2. Why in the Y direction it may be? Why it is more? But okay, it may be also because of the overhanging of the column. Okay, because of the overhanging beam that we have, the structure may be more stiffer in X direction compared to the Y direction. Therefore, we need to find out by analyzing the graph. We need to look at the machine tool. We need to analyze how these are contributing, how the presence of where is the location of the particular bearing, how it is contributing to increase in vibration. That we need to analyze. Then we need to come to a common conclusion or correct conclusion. Okay, now when we perform the experimentation, as you all know, we can do it without for the 2 conditions. One is the non-cutting condition. Other one is the cutting condition. When you do the non-cutting condition, what we can vary is we can vary only the spindle speed. We can vary the spindle speed, and we come to know the vibration. Now, if we perform the experimentation in cutting condition, again we will get more information. Okay, the more information because there are many parameters, varying parameters. Varying parameters are, it can be cutting speed, it can be feed. In case of drilling, the depth of cut will not be constant. Therefore, it will not be a varying parameter. You can see that in this graph, we have two graphs, vibration in X direction and a Y direction. and the cutting speed considered is 21.36 meter per minute, and the feed is 0.285 millimeter per revolution. Based on that, we have obtained the data. Now, what is the trend that we are getting? Whether it is the same as that of in the non-cutting condition, whether it has been reversed or whether there is any change in the pattern, that we'll come to know here. Okay, if there's a change in pattern, then that is the scope, that is the area that we need to concentrate. Then we need to find out the actual theoretical reason for happening. Okay, in this case, the trend is same. That is, the drilling time, the vibrations across all the 4 bearings has been in the increasing trend with respect to the drilling time. And at the cutting speed, the same cutting speed, you can see that as the drilling time increases, the cutting speed increases. Now, the question is, why with respect to the drilling time, speed is same, but with respect to the drilling time, why the vibration is increasing? That we need to find out. Okay, one of the reason may be as the time passes, there will be wear out in the cutting tool, that is in the drill bit also. Okay, that drill bit requires more force to drill the hole. Okay, when it requires more force, more thrust or more torque to drill the hole, that leads to increase in vibration in that force transmitted to bearing, and that leads to vibration at the bearing location. Okay, that may be one of the cause. Okay, likewise, we need to identify what are the reasons for increasing the vibration with respect to the drilling time. And also with respect to X and Y directions, as we have already discussed in the previous case, that is for the non-cutting condition, with respect to the structure stiffness. Okay, here also we can find out the vibration is more in the Y direction. Okay, that may be one of the factor why it may be why the vibration is more in the Y direction. Okay, this is okay. What I mean here is, when we perform a research, okay, these are all the aspects that to be considered. That is, for a condition monitoring, we can use the vibration signals. When we use vibration signals, on a machine tool, we can go for cutting condition and non-cutting condition, and we will be able to identify what is the vibration at the bearing location. Likewise, we also use the temperature. We can, by measuring the temperature, we'll come to know what is the temperature of that bearing. Again, if it crosses the limit, then we can say that the temperature is exceeding the limit. Thereby, there may be defect in the bearing, and that we need to check for the correct check for the type of defect in the bearing. Now, coming to the third aspect, that is the acoustic emission. You can see that, okay, acoustic emission, first we shall see the definition of this acoustic emission. As from the definition for ASTM, it says that acoustic emissions are the transient elastic waves generated by the rapid release of energy from localized sources within a material. Okay, these acoustic emissions means these are all the stress waves. Okay, stress waves are released when there is a deformation in the material. When there is the energy is released when there is a deformation in the material. That stress waves is called as acoustic emission. And how to measure that? We have a sensor. It acts as a transducer as well as it acts as a receiver. The sensor receives a signal and it passes to the AE instrument. Now, by using this AE instrument, we can also find how the component is behaving. Okay, what is the condition of the component? Now, what is the type of signals that we get? We get 2 types of signals when we use AE, that is acoustic emission. That is, we get a burst emission and we get a continuous emission. The burst emission is a sudden release of energy. Continuous emission is the periodic release of the energy. You can see that burst emission. Why we say burst emissions? You can see that the peaks as well as the peaks are also dying down. And you can in case of continuous emissions, the peaks are almost at the same level. Little bit variation in the peaks. Okay, this it is called as the starting. When we call as an event, you can see that from the graph from the origin to right hand side, we can see that there is a AE signals. Then when to call it as an event, if an acoustic emission crosses a predetermined threshold value, then that event starts. And when it dies down, the threshold value, then till that area, we call that as an AE event. That is, a particular acoustic emission event has been occurred or a particular deformation has been occurred. Therefore, this energy has been released. Okay, and parameters to measure AE signals are, it can be the AE count or the AE RMS or the AE signal peak amplitude. Okay, these are all some of the parameters which are used to measure the AE signals. Now, with respect to the instrumentation part, what are the things we require? The first we require is the AE sensor. From the AE sensor, the signal is transmitted to the preamplifier. From the preamplifier, it is transmitted to the PC, where it is through the PCA card, where the signals are processed. Now, coming to the data that has been obtained from AE instrument. Again, this is a typical data to show that how to analyze the data. Okay, you can see here this is a graph of AE RMS versus the time, and the time again with respect to this, with respect to the drilling machine tool, and the cutting speed is 11.309 meter per minute. And if you can analyze if the graphs over here, it can be divided into three regions. That is, there's an increasing trend over here, then it decreases, and then it attains a almost steady state. Then again, it goes to increases. Okay, this we can attribute into the wear rate of the drill bit. Okay, if we study the wear rate of the drill bit, in the initial stage there's a rapid wear, then it comes to moderate, and then again it increases as the time increases. Again, it goes to rapid wear rate, because in the initial stage, there will be asperities in the drill bit. They rub against the workpiece. Thereby, there will be initial stage, the wear rate will be more. And once they set with the workpiece, the wear rate will die down. And then again, as the wear will be more, because with respect to the time progress, again, there will be the wearing of the drill bit will be more. Okay, now that we can correlate with respect to the type of signal that has been obtained. Though it is a AE signal that is been obtained, because the wear rate is more, there is an increase in AE signal that has been obtained. Then at the middle stage, it has been reduced, and again at the final stage, it has been increased. Okay, this is one of the reasons that we can find out, or that we can attribute to the variation of acoustic emission signal with respect to drilling, for a cutting speed of 11.309 meter per minute. Similarly, the other parameter is AE count. If you see the AE counts, again, there is a decrease in the AE counts. Okay, again, it is the same factor, because since there is an increase in the AE parameter level, therefore there is the number of counts decreases. Therefore, it's a reverse trend that we can observe in AE counts. Okay, likewise, we can consider various parameters. Then after drawing the graph, we need to analyze the reason for that particular variations. Okay, and also from the another aspect here is from the AE, we'll also get the waveform. Okay, you can see that it is the waveform for a sharp state of the drill bit, and this is the waveform for the overload state. Okay, you can see that there are peaks over here, whereas the band of peaks over here. Okay, the flank pair of, in the initial stage, it was flank pair was 0.012 mm, whereas here the flank pair is 0.348 mm. Okay, therefore, as the flank pair increases, we can also see the AE waveform, more AE waveform that can be observed over here. Similarly, with the AE, we can also find out the power spectral density. Okay, the PSD plot. When you do the PSD plot for both the cases, we can see that the number of peaks are less in the case of sharp state drill bit, whereas in the overload state, the number of peaks are more, and we can see more number of power versus frequency because of the overload state. Okay, again, this will act as a proof for what we have discussed for the AE parameter, that is AE counts or AE RMS, because in the initial state, the power spectral density plot, we have the power versus frequency is less here, whereas the power versus frequency is more here, because that has contributed to release of more energy, and thereby the variation in the AE signals can be observed. Now, the fourth aspect is the FEM. Okay, till now what we have discussed is, we have discussed with respect to how to use the vibration signals to monitor the condition of the machine tool. Then we have discussed with respect to using the temperature. The third aspect is with respect to the acoustic emission signals. Now we will go for the theoretical aspect. The theoretical aspect, that is by using FEM, that is finite element method. Okay, now finite element method, we need to model the drilling machine tool considering all the dimensions. And this was the one that I was talking about. Along the overhanging column, it is X direction, and perpendicular to that, it will be the Y direction. Okay, now it is the main drive assembly of the drilling machine tool. You can see that why we are discussing about only the 4 bearings, because along this spindle we have 4 bearings. This is a bearing 1, this is bearing 2, and we have bearing 3, and as well as bearing 4. That is in the 4 locations we have 4 bearing. Along with that, we also have the spindle gear, the driven gear, we have the driver gear, and we have the check. And apart from that, we have feed gear, stub gear, pulley. These are also have been modeled in FEM. Okay, that next slide will show how it has been modeled. Okay, by using the beam mass and the mass elements, the matrix elements, those elements by bearing the pulley gear, the stub gear, feed shaft, feed gear has been modeled by using finite element method. Now, once we model that, what we need to do? Okay, once by knowing the dimensions of each component, we need to see that, okay, there will be some amount of approximations, but we should see that it is the exact replica of the actual drilling machine tool or the actual machine tool. Once it has been done, normally we'll need to go for model analysis. Okay, model analysis, we all know we're going to give the frequencies, and that frequency, the natural frequencies that we need to avoid while running the particular machine tool. Thereby, because we know that again the main reason the resonance occurs and the vibration will be more. Therefore, Therefore, model analysis helps us in knowing the natural frequency of the system. Thereby, we can avoid the running of the system in that particular frequency. Okay, this is the first mode shape. We can see that structure is rocking in X direction. Here it is rocking in the Y direction. Similarly, we can get 10 mode shapes. And not only the mode shapes, we'll also get the frequencies, which can be tabulated, and we can find out what is the reason, what is the deformation shape in that, and thereby we can avoid the running of the drilling machine tool at these particular frequencies. Okay, therefore, one aspect that we got here is by modeling, we came to know the natural frequency of the system. Okay, once the model analysis has been done, then we'll go for the harmonic response analysis. Okay, why the harmonic response analysis? Okay, because we need to know about what about the response of the structure for the unbalanced forces. Okay, unbalanced forces are the rotating components, because the rotating components always going to give the centrifugal force that will lead to the unbalance and the unbalanced forces in the machine tool. Therefore, we need to perform those harmonic response analysis. Then which are all the elements to be considered? Okay, unbalanced forces should be considered from the rotating machine elements. Okay, how to consider that? You need to go for the centrifugal formula. Again, the formula is well known, m omega square r. By using this, we need to calculate what is the centrifugal force of all the rotating machine elements. Okay, that is, we know m is mass in kg, omega angular velocity in radians per second, and r is the radius of eccentricity in m, in meter. Likewise, once we calculate the centrifugal force, we also need to find out the tangential load of the machine gear. Okay, tangential load of the machine gear is given by Ft equal to 2mty divided by d, that is torque transmitted by pitch diameter. Then torque diameter, again from the data handbooks, we'll go to get these values. How much the torque transmitted? That is 9.55 into 10 power of 6 p by n. Likewise, the gear machine frequency. By like things, for all the rotating components, we need to calculate the corresponding rotational force. Then we need to input that into the FEM model. Then we need to go for performing harmonic response analysis. When we perform that, then the results are tabulated. The results are taken in the form of a graph. When we draw it in the terms of graph, or show it in the terms of graph, again we can get the results in the X direction as well as in the Y direction. And you can also see we get the blue line indicates the RMS value, that each rotating component is contributing for some amount of vibration. Therefore, when we measure it from a spindle bearing location, the contribution from all these rotating components will be recorded. Therefore, again we need to go for the Fourier transformation, or we need to segregate the frequencies, and we need to be able to identify from which frequency, from which component we are getting this vibration. Now, once we do this from the unbalanced forces, we'll come to know what is the vibration that we are getting. Then we'll going to go for we can perform thermal analysis. Okay, thermal analysis, again, thermal analysis, we need to know about the amount of heat generation. Heat generated in bearing can be computed by the equation. Okay, again, this is from the data handbook. From this, we will come to know what is the amount of heat generated. Okay, again, by using the various constants, we need to find out what is the amount of heat generated. Okay, now that should be input into the model. And if we, along with that, we need to consider the Nusselt number, then the Reynolds number, and as well as the Prandtl number. And when we calculate and it is input into the model, then we get the heat distribution, temperature distribution in the drilling machine too. If you observe that it is at 360 RPM and 680 RPM, as we know, as we increase the speed, there should be increase in the amount of heat generation. Okay, therefore you can see that the value of the heat generated is 35.14. Here it is 41.076. That indicates that the model what we have done is it indicates the actual or the real one. Thereby, we can identify how the heat distribution is throughout the machine's tool structure. Okay, that is by after harmonic analysis, we discussed regarding the thermal analysis. By using the thermal analysis, we'll come to know how the heat distribution is taking place in the machine tool system. Then comes the major thing, that is the transient dynamic analysis. Okay, if we do research, you can consider this as the major point. That is, the primary analysis has to be done. Along with that, if we consider, then it will be a very good research. That is transient dynamic analysis. In that, we can consider bearing as a case 1, and for the gears, you can consider the case 2. In case of bearing, we can simulate a bearing defect. Whereas for the actual bearing to create a defect, it will be too difficult. Okay, for that purpose, what we can go for is we can go for a simulation mode. Okay, in that simulation mode, what we can do is we can consider a bearing here. This has a bearing as 12 rollers, and what we have done is we can simulate a defect here. This is a crater defect, and it is depth is 0.01 millimeter depth, and the width is 3 mm. Therefore, what it does, as the bearing rotates, the balls will also rotate, and as the ball passes through this defect, they're going to create an impulse because there is a depth. Therefore, they're going to hit that, and thereby they're going to create the defect, and they're going to create an impulse or an impact, and that impact leads to vibration. Therefore, that if we can be able to calculate, and if you input in the system, from that we'll come to know what is the type of vibration that we are getting from that particular type of defect. Therefore, by considering this one of the defect that we are discussing, likewise we can consider the defect in any direction, and also we can change the shape of the defect, and we'll be able to identify what is the impulse that is getting, and how the bearing reacts, and how the vibration will be with respect to that particular machine tool. That can be analyzed by using transient dynamic analysis. For this case, I'll be explaining in detail. That is impact force calculation, how it has to be there. We know that there are 12 balls, as I already said. It is in the outer race. It has been considered along the outer race, along the x direction, because we are saying that there are two directions, x and y. Therefore, the defect is considered along the x direction. Now, in the x direction, the dimension, it has been already said, that is 0.01 mm depth and 3 mm width. And this as a ball rolls over that, as an impact is generated every time the balls rolls over that, and due to a constant speed of bearing rotation, defect generates a regular set of impacts. Therefore, we get a regular set of impacts when the balls want to roll over the defect. Now, how to calculate the time taken by bearing for one revolution? How to do it? Again, simple calculation: 680 RPM, that is 680 revolutions per minute. Therefore, for one revolution, what is the time taken? It is 0.0882 seconds, and thereby, as it rolls over the defect, we know that it produces the triangular pulse. Therefore, time per pitch of the element, and also considering the outer and inner diameter, we'll come to know what is the mean diameter. By that mean diameter, we'll calculate what is the circumference of the mean diameter, and by calculating circumference of the mean diameter, we'll come to know what is the time taken for passing through that particular 3 mm defect. Okay, that is, since it's a defect, there will be when you consider this, initially there will be contact of the rolling element bearing over here. Then at the center, it's going to hit the outer race of the bearing. Then again it comes to the contact at the end of the gear. Thereby, it's going to create a triangular pulse. Okay, therefore, for the triangular pulse, what is the time taken? That we need to calculate, and that we need to consider with respect to the various time. And we need to find out what is the force that is impacted. That is, for a concentrated nodal force, by considering the stiffness of the bearing, we'll be obtaining this one, that is Kb equal to 0.5 into d. Then after calculating that, we'll come to know that this is the force, this is stiffness of the bearing. From the stiffness, we'll be able to identify the impact force. By multiplying the stiffness with respect to the depth of the defect, we'll come to know the impact force. And this impact force with respect to time, that with respect to time, we need to identify the variation of this force with respect to time is determined. And that load parameter, that load sheet should be input into transient dynamic analysis. When we perform the analysis, then we get the results. Okay, now we shall see the typical results here. And this is the response due to 0.01 mm defect depth in x direction. In x direction, and this is considering the two bearings, that is bearing 1 and bearing 4 in both x and y directions. Similarly, it is for the defect response in y direction. We have got some value. Again, by analyzing these graphs and by analyzing the trend of the variation and by analyzing the values of these things, we would be able to identify what is the main source of defect. And similarly, when you go for the case 2, we can go for the gear defect. Okay, in case of gear defect, what we can do is we can go for the pitting defect on a spindle driver gear teeth. Okay, again, we have various types of defect. One of the defect what I have considered is we can go for a pitting defect. Okay, in the pitting defect, you can see that these are all the pitting defect that can be observed on pitting defect on the gear teeth. Okay, this has been simulated. Now, the band of contact in this defect region, because when the gear gear teeth mesh with the other gear, you can see that this is the normal starting point, and we have the band of contact over here. And the third sketch, we can see that there is a normal end point. Then again, there is a triangular pulse that we're going to get. And if we draw that pulse graph, this is the one that we get. That is the pair of gear meshing where there is a loss of contact, and then as the contact begins, it shoots up to the disturbing load. It shoots up by 2%. Then again, as the gear rotates or the teeth rotates, again it reduces, and again its loss of contact will be there. Therefore, the force reduces. Again, it shoots up. Thereby, this is the variation of signal that we get with respect to the time. Again, this load chart has to be made. That is, the load with respect to time has to be done to calculate the meshing tooth force and other things. As we discussed in the harmonic response analysis, the similar formulas has been used. And by using those formulas, the load transmitter time sheet has been developed and has been input into model, and then the results are obtained. Once we get those results, okay, these are the results that we get from the bearing locations for the at 680 RPM for the bearing 1 and 2 as well as for the 3 and 4. Okay, and again, if you analyze this graph, okay, so for some bearing location, the defect is the transmission of the vibration is more. For some, it is the vibration is less. Again, we need to find out what are all the reasons for these aspects. Okay, by doing this, by considering the various types of defects, we can simulate and we will be able to identify and we can be able to correlate that with respect to the present scenario. We will be able to correlate with respect to the present machine tool, and we will be able to identify what is the main cause that is happening for either for the bearing or for the gear. Now comes the last part, that is the prediction part. Okay, in the prediction part, again, we have various tools that can be used to predict that. Okay, that is, we can go for multiple regression analysis. Again, we can go for a linear relation, or we can go for a non-linear relation depending on the parameters selected. Or else we can go for a group method of data handling, or the present trend is we can go for an artificial neural network. Again, artificial neural network, you can go for back propagation. The feed forward neural network model can be used, and one of the model that is best is you can also go for a general regression neural network model, which also gives very good predictions, with respect to the required parameter. Okay, again, why prediction required? Because you should not only know the current state of the components, you should also be able to predict the future state. Okay, for that, the prediction is a required thing. Because nowadays, what we say, it is the Internet of Things, that is IoT. Now, the advanced one is IIoT, that is Industry Internet of Things. Okay, to be ready or to be compliant with the Industry Internet of Things, then we should be have a multisensory approach combined with this prediction technique. Thereby, we'll be able to be able to monitor the condition of the machine tool in a more comprehensive manner. This is the thing that I wanted to discuss with you all. I hope I have communicated the intention of mine. Okay, now we'll go for the last part, that is the conclusion part. Okay, conclusions, as I already said, the 4 that I'll be carrying at the introduction will be to carry the conclusion, because again, still there is a wide scope for research for these aspects. Therefore, condition monitoring, you can apply it for a technique for improving the productivity, efficiency, and reliability of the machine components. And as we already discussed, all our techniques have the drawback because they can give only picture about only a particular element. To know about the comprehensively, therefore we need to use many techniques. We need to go for multisensory approach, and we require the more information about how exactly the real faults develop and how exhibit themselves with the measured parameters. Therefore, we need to go for a multisensory approach. And finally, that is not sufficient. It should be added with prediction of future operating states and as well as the future failure states. Okay, that should be included. Okay, considering this, I hope that I have conveyed what I intended to. Now it's open for discussions.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for sharing valuable information on condition monitoring of machine tools, sir. Now I would like to request participants to clear their doubts with Naveen, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah, I thank you all. I thank Dr. Gurupavan HR for giving me an opportunity to express my ideas in this FDP. Thank you, Gurupavan, and thank you one and all.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Okay, we shall continue our program after a lunch break, and we will be back at 2:30 p.m. with the third session. Thank you.